But I'm just furious that the government says that there's $250 billion for stage 3 tax cuts and $368 billion for nuclear submarines, but they can't commit to lifting single parents and job seekers and people with a disability out of poverty. Right? This is why Labor is becoming a centre-right party that prioritises tax cuts for the wealthy over building more public housing. And the Prime Minister has spent the last 3 days dressing himself in khaki and talking about tax cuts for the wealthy while people live in poverty. In my electorate, there are people living in tents because they can't afford a place to live. I am trying to find houses for pregnant women who are couch surfing, right? We have people who are spending 60% of their income on rent, and queues at food banks are growing. And meanwhile, the Prime Minister goes and talks about missiles. I want to hear less talk from the Prime Minister about missiles and more about funding a rent freeze and lifting people out of poverty. Because in a wealthy country like ours, where Labor can afford $250 billion to give Clive Palmer and Gina Rinehart a tax cut, it makes me incredibly angry that they're leaving people in poverty and then tinkering around the edges and saying maybe we'll raise income support by a little bit. No, I want to hear less talk about missiles and more talk about fixing the rental and housing crisis by putting a rent freeze on and building an adequate number of public housing so that everyone in this wealthy country of ours has a place to live. We want the Prime Minister to treat the rental crisis with the same degree of urgency that he did with rising power bills. Yes, it will take working together with the states, but that's what National Cabinet is for. And if the Prime Minister can do it with power bills, then he can do it with rent as well. Now, as an incentive to get the states on board, the federal government has a lot of power. And that's why we're saying offer the states some extra money on the condition that they freeze rents so that the states can then go and build or buy some extra properties to deal with the rental crisis right now, and everyone will win out of it. So there's a pathway to make it happen, but that's what National Cabinet's for. And if Labor, it's wall-to-wall Labor governments on the mainland at the moment. They can't wash their hands of the rental crisis anymore. That's what National Cabinet is for. And if Labor doesn't act, it's only because they don't want to act. Labor is increasingly out of touch with what life is like for renters. I think the Prime Minister does not understand just how tough renters are doing it at the moment. When the Prime Minister stands up in question time and calls action to help renters pixie dust, and he heaps scorn on all of the renters who are doing it tough at the moment. The government does not understand that queues at food banks are growing. People are spending 60% of their income in rent. People are being forced to live out of their cars. And to dismiss all solutions to fix that and call it pixie dust is not only the height of arrogance, it's a government that doesn't understand the scale of the crisis and what is needed to fix it. People are doing it tough right now. Renters need help right now, and the government needs to help them right now, not chuck scorn on them in question time.